Welcome back to the Scarlet Faithful podcast. I'm your host and co-founder, Aaron Breitman, and tonight here, happy to welcome Jeffrey the Greek, former Iowa Hawkeye and co-host of the Eyes on Big Ten podcast, to talk Iowa football ahead of Saturday's game against Rutgers. Jeffrey, thanks so much for being here.
Aaron, great to talk to somebody on the East Coast, get to know a little bit, hopefully a couple new people, segments of a fan base a little bit. I'm excited.
Well, it's the first time Rutgers has met Iowa since 2019. That was a game Rutgers fans would like to forget. It was 30-0. And then played once in Piscataway. It was a 14-7 game when Janarian Grant got hurt on a big play for Rutgers fans. So two kind of painful losses in our memory bank against Iowa. Coming into this game, obviously a little bit of a rough start this year. I was just curious, kind of big picture, what expectations were for this team and kind of what the mindset is of the fan base right now.
Well, that's quite a bit different things, I can tell you that much. Expectations for this team were pretty high going into the season. I can't speak for the whole fan base. My expectations were a little bit muted. I had Minnesota winning the division back in August. I had Iowa right around second or third, basically tied for second. I thought they'd go 9-3, 8-4 type of deal. They still could, that's still possible. So that was the expectations. The current temperature of the fan base is high, Now the funny thing is we're 2-1, and I know I'm going to sound like a Hawkeye homer here, but we're a play away from being 3-0 and beating Iowa State. Any one of the two plays that we could have scored on in the goal line to go up 14-3 on Iowa State, in my opinion, we would have won that game. I mean, our defense had completely shut Iowa State out. So really close to being 3-0, but the aggression from the Hawkeye fans is coming from obviously not just a bad offense, a historically bad offense, and fans are quite frankly fed up, sick of it, however you want to say it, but it's an offense that needs to look better in a hurry.
And with the offense, I mean, this isn't something that just happened this year, right? It's kind of been building up, where last year it kind of struggled at times too. And obviously Brian Ferentz, being Kirk Ferentz's son as the offensive coordinators, that kind of adds some juice to the kind of disdain that people have, being that, he's kind of, do you feel like he's been given extra chances, I guess you could say, than what most people would think if an OC like that struggled for as long as he has?
Yeah, it's a valid question. I don't spend as much time being frustrated with that. Now, this is like a slippery slope type of question and answer. You could ask 50 different Hawkeye fans. You'd probably get 50 different answers. For me, I don't get hung up quite as much on the Kirk Ferentz, Brian Ferentz thing. I get more hung up on our schemes. Now, of course, that would go back to Brian Ferentz. But the thing is the plotting, if we will, Iowa offense. This has gone through many an offensive coordinator, through the years. It's not just been Brian Ferentz. And then another thing would be sticking with quarterbacks past their due date. Okay. Also not germane to just 2022. I won't bore you with the other examples, but this is at least the third or fourth time where Hawkeye fans have felt pretty adamant that there needs to be a quarterback change, but Coach Ferentz will stick with his guns. Okay. Now there's a part of me that's like, who are any of us to argue? And I'll get, again, on my high horse, but I think Iowa's 9th in win percentage among Power 5 teams since 2015. It's been a pretty darn good run of Iowa football. There are other ways to win a game than just simply outscoring people. But with that being said, we're ready for some offense. If it comes from Brian Ferentz or Spencer Petras or a different coordinator or quarterback, at some point, I don't think a lot of Hawkeye fans care. They just want it to look better.
And just in terms of the offense, obviously Petras has struggled, but the run game too hasn't kind of been where it's been in the past. Is it, I guess how much blame goes on the quarterback, and how much has the offensive line kind of struggled in terms of not being able to generate the run game that Iowa's kind of known for?
Okay, again, complicated question and answer, but I would actually choose something a little bit outside of what you offered up, which is our wide receivers. We lost 3 of our top 4 wide receivers before the first game. And we didn't have a particularly deep wide receiver room to begin with, as you can probably have figured out. Charlie Jones, projected starter, has been setting records at Purdue since the beginning of the season. We knew about him being gone after the spring. Most Hawkeye fans felt okay with the wide receivers. We had some young wide receivers, but then Keegan Johnson gets hurt. Deontay Vines gets hurt. And then our kind of slot. I mean, you literally could make a point to say our starting 3 wide receivers went down. With that went our passing attack. And then when there is no threat behind those linebackers of completing a ball, and there's no threat of the quarterback running for yards because Petrus is a statue, guess what suffers? The offensive line and the rushing attack. So I would assume Rutgers is going to employ the same defensive technique on Saturday night that everybody else does, which is essentially crash all your available non-defensive back players into the line of scrimmage and make our wide receivers and Petrus beat you. So I'm not an X's and O wizard by any stretch, more of a advanced novice. But I feel like I know enough to say most offensive lines suffer when you're trying to block more guys than there are offensive linemen.
And obviously Nevada is not a strong opponent, but I actually was a little. I thought they might potentially give them more of a game than they did. Is there any positives coming out of that game for the offense and how they looked? And was there anything different schematically or personnel wise?
Yes, we had 2 of our receivers back in that game. One receiver, a younger kid that wasn't projected to be a starter, but everybody was excited for. He was on the field. Nico Reganey also on the field. Keegan Johnson was on the field too. It was like literally having a completely different wide receiver core out there. Once that happened, they started taking shots downfield. They hit on some. And it opened up the rushing attack. And then it looked better. We were piling up the yards, and then the storms came. I mean, I don't know how aware your audience is or not, but wildest night of Iowa football that I can remember. I mean, the game started at 6:35 and ended at 1:39 local time in the morning. I mean, I literally dozed off during one of the rain delays, storm delays, woke back up as they were kind of starting their 4th time, starting the game. At some point, they just kind of shut it down. Like, I think they would have gotten another touchdown or maybe even, 10 points or something on the board. But I think both teams, honestly, they just wanted to get the hell out of there by the end of the game. So
I actually tweeted during that. I was like, let him play all night, as this is not a bad,
right.
Just let him
I'm
play.
sure you did. Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess Rutgers fans should know that, I mean, as much as the Iowa offense struggled the first 2 games, there is some reason to believe that, this will be a better offense come Saturday.
Better, right? Okay, better. That doesn't mean good. Efficient is what they're going for. So I hope to see that. If I could switch it, if you will, what gets overshadowed a lot is this might be the best Iowa defense I have seen since Kirk Ferentz has been there, and there has been some really good defenses. I think we could have as many as 4 first-team All Big Ten defenders on this defense. So that is how they were always going to be this year, is a defensive-minded special teams team. It's just that they have had to lean even more into the strength of the team, the defense, that I think that anybody had anticipated, just 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, for Rutgers fans, Iowa's always kind of been that program that, I wouldn't say we hope to be, but, the model of the defense, special teams, very much Schiano's kind of philosophy, and the way he's played, to the frustration of many fans with our offense, the way it's been so conservative so far. But defensively, what is, I guess what makes them so good this year, not only personnel-wise, but schematically, what should Rutgers fans expect from Iowa?
Expect the same thing it's looked, for over a decade under Phil Parker. It's a mostly zone-based team that's going to keep the plays in front of them and react up as quick as they can. Jack Campbell, our middle linebacker, is as intelligent as a linebacker mixed in with athletic ability that's just off the charts. I mean, 6'5", 250, runs like a deer. He's a force. He is a force to reckon with. It seems like he knows the other team's offense. My joke is I think he knows the other team's offense better than our offense knows our offense is basically how it looks. But, it's tough to run against Iowa. It's tough to hit big plays. They're going to give up the middle of the field and make college quarterbacks consistently hit those mid-range throws and move it the whole way down the field and then get into the end zone if you do that. It takes a patient signal caller. It takes a patient play caller. It's tough to run against us. If you can run against us, obviously all bets are off. But, that's the defense they've always run. I just think they have some of the best collection of players I've seen them have in quite some time.
And the defensive line, how much is that just, generating pressure and getting push in the trenches on their own versus it sounds like there's not a lot of necessarily blitz packages or, anything outside of just the defensive line kind of dominating their matchups?
Yeah, we blitz mostly on second down type of deal. On third down, we trust our defense to make the play. So there are blitzes that happen, just not a ton. Not a ton of sacks this year, and not a ton of tackle for losses. It's just a lot of 2-yard plays. I mean, that is basically what it looks like, and get people off the field. So the defensive line, the name that is the biggest name is Lucas Van Ness. He has been a force. After that, it's just a ton of rotating guys. And when we got 6 or 7 guys, we rotate. Jack Campbell, Seth Benson for the linebackers. Riley Moss was the Big Ten defensive back of the year last year. And I'm not so sure if Cooper DeJean isn't better than him. And I you tell me after you watch the game, but listen, I'm being honest. I've talked about how bad the offense is. I'll also talk about how good the defense is. I don't know how anybody that kind of understands football couldn't watch Iowa and basically come away with the same thing.
Well, I think that's pretty much why after Rutgers, the offense looked terrible against Temple. And now with the quarterback, injury concerns, I think Rutgers fans' optimisms went from, that we have a really good chance to beat Iowa to, I think it's pretty muted now in terms of, the optimism simply because the Iowa defense is so great and the Rutgers offense has been so terrible so far.
So if you don't mind, to me, from what I've seen from Rutgers, Evan Simon is the quarterback and Wimsett is the change of direction guy, bring him in for packages and whatnot. Is that what you think Schiano is doing? Is that the general plan, or is it really rotating quarterback type of deal?
What we think Schiano is doing is pretty much up in the air. It's been pretty hard to figure out. I'm in the camp of, I think Wimsett, at some point needs to get the keys. He has the highest ceiling. He, fits Sean Gleason, offensive coordinator's scheme at the RPO that he's always wanted to run. He recruited him. Simon was recruited by the staff before. He's more of a traditional, drop back passer, not as mobile, although he can run. But what's kind of thrown a monkey wrench in things is Noah Vedral. People thought and hoped Wimsett would beat him out from day one. And it really felt like in camp, it was kind of muddled, and Vedral was probably going to start again and then got hurt. And then it was kind of, all right, we have Wimsett and Simon. Let's kind of rotate them. And then what happened in the Temple game after the second series is Wimsett came up limping. and then they sat him out the rest of the game. So there's really no. Schiano is a master of just giving no details with injuries. Didn't even announce. The media wasn't even allowed to announce Vedral until the night before or the morning of the season opener. So Vedral's been week to week we're now into week 4. Wimsatt is supposed to be a game time decision. My gut tells me Simon's probably going to be the guy. That only leaves you one scholarship quarterback in the game. So certainly not a great position to be in. But yeah, you're right in terms of Wimsatt certainly being changed the pace. I think, he's a tremendous threat running the ball. And we saw against Boston College, the last drive, he didn't even run it, but just the threat of him being out there, he had a 48-yard run earlier in the game. Right. And it just affected the way Boston College defended them, and they were able to run it down their throats. Simon is a lot more predictable. So, can he make throws, the mid-level throws against Iowa? I think he can. I think the frustrating thing for Rutgers fans is there's so many athletes that they have now that they haven't had before. A wide receiver, running back that they really haven't utilized. Maybe that's them intentionally being very vanilla going into Iowa and trying to throw Iowa off in this game. That'll be something to watch. But if it's just Simon going in, I think it's going to be tough. But who knows? I mean, if Vedral comes out and starts the game, I think it will be very interesting to how Iowa, obviously their defense is tremendous, but, Rutgers is probably going to do some things they haven't done yet this season.
Interesting. Okay. And then, I've been impressed by the rushing attack, and that's behind a completely remade offensive line. So 5 yards, carry average for the offense. We like Monungai coming into the year. Salam, we've nicknamed him Slim Shady. He seems to be like a thin, tall running back. But that seems to obviously be the strength of what Rutgers wants to do.
Yeah, I just think that against Iowa, you're going to I almost think they need to get the passing game going to be able to run against Iowa. I think if they go out there, people are, fans are rightfully frustrated against Temple. They ran the ball on first down 80+ % of the time. Second down, run heavy as well. And I just think if that, if they're going to try to run the ball against Iowa and beat them that way, I think it's they're playing not to lose. They're going to have to take some chances. I think they're going to have to, Salam, I think in the passing game, short passes, Crookshank obviously, is really athletic. And they just have to get those guys the ball, I think, in space. And I think if they could, they could do some damage against Iowa. But I think if they're traditional, if they're not trying to take chances, I think they have to take risks against Iowa if they're going to win the game.
So I get you. I'm not even necessarily disagreeing with you. I guess I'd be interested to hear Greg Schiano's point of view, because it might be opposite.
I think it will be.
Okay. And probably as a fan, you're sick of seeing that. So I don't discount that. SDSU and Iowa State, they use the same game plan, which is vanilla, run the ball, matriculate. If it doesn't work, punt it away. Why? We don't feel threatened by Iowa's offense. And then every now and then, both teams tried to take a kill shot, SDSU just missed theirs, It was open. It would have had to been a really good throw, and it wasn't. Same with Iowa State. So I wonder if that's what Schiano is going to try to do is take that perfect on the field shot. If we hit it, 7 points, Iowa getting behind 10-0, 10-3 is a gigantic deficit. But at the same time, again, Cooper DeJean, Riley Moss, name the defenders. They typically make teams hurt if they take risks, because it's a ball hawking defense. And then it plays into the teeth of what Iowa wants you to do, which is to take shots. The word turnover will have been said 8 million times by Schiano to his team this week, and I might be underselling it. Kirk Ferentz too. If there is a 2 turnover advantage for either team, that's probably the winner of the football game right there. So the turnovers, it's boring to talk about because you can never really predict it. But to me, that's going to be the biggest stat of the game, along with punting, which,
Yes.
I mean,
That was
we've
my
got to
next
talk
question.
about here.
That was yeah, for sure. I mean, I agree with you, and I do think Shiano is going to take a vanilla approach. But I just, that Iowa defense, the offensive line, the problem with Rutgers is penalties. It's been much more penalties than turnovers. 25 penalties in the first 3 games. They've killed several drives where they were, in the red zone or right outside, and back-to-back penalties. Offsides on the offensive line, false starts. It's been sloppy. So I think part of that's been the rotation of quarterbacks. It's thrown off a new offensive line that's still kind of gelling. But I think if anything, the penalties are really, obviously they have to play clean football, mistake-free football to have a chance against Iowa. And I think Shiano's probably hoping that Iowa can make a mistake first. I think whoever makes the first big mistake, it will be interesting to see how the other team adjusts in terms of their game plan.
I could not agree more. I mean, it's just one of those deals where if either team jumps out to a 10-0 lead, people are going to start clicking off because they're like, well, we can't come back from that, So, I agree with a lot of that.
Well, in the highest scoring games that Rutgers has had under Shiano, they've been huge turnover games. They've been 4 or 5, against Indiana. They had 38 points. It was, I think, 5 turnovers. That game against Michigan State where they had 7 turnovers, 38 points. They Temple, even last year, I think it was 5 or 6 turnovers. They scored 61. So they're obviously a big turnover game would be huge for the offense. But punting, special teams in general, I think the game actually very well could be won in special teams overall, not just with the punters. Obviously, 2 great ones in Taylor and Corsack, but just in terms of the special teams in general with field goals, but also return game. This for Rutgers fans, for me, this is a game that, if Aaron Cruikshank can run back, he's going to change the entire dynamic of the game. Who does Iowa have, in your opinion, that could do that on your end?
First thing I'll say is I can state that our special teams coordinator is acutely aware of Aaron Cruikshank. He's known him for quite some time. Maybe we even tried to get him in black and gold at some point. So that'll be a huge focus of our special teams. Our returner, it's the same Cooper DeJean guy that we talked about. Riley Moss returns some to our kind of wide receiver running back hybrid guy. He gets back there, so we kind of rotate around for the kickoff and punt returns. But yeah, I mean, when you talk special teams with Iowa, it's all Tory Taylor. No offense to Adam Corsack, who we talk about on the podcast all the time. I think Adam Corsack's mom follows the Eyes on Big podcast or something like that. I can't remember. But he's a weapon. I mean, he literally is a weapon. I don't know if we beat SDSU without Tory Taylor as the punter. I mean, he's not happy to down him inside the 10. He wants him inside the 3. I mean, it's just been crazy what they pulled out, and then the big booming kicks as well. And obviously the 2 punters in this game is why, I mean, we got a shot here, Aaron, to have the lowest game total set by Vegas since the year 2000, which is at 34. We're at 34.5.
Right.
We get enough underbetters between now and Saturday. Maybe we can get 33.5. That's what I'm hoping for, man. I want the title.
It would be pretty amazing. I have great memories of 2019 when they both had huge games. Corsack had, I think, a little bit of a better game, and most people thought he deserved to win the Ray Guy Punter of the Week. And it was
we were wait, was it who won it that week?
It
was somebody out of the Big Ten.
It was somebody out of the Big Ten, but
yeah,
Corsack didn't even win the Big Ten Punter of the Week. It was the kid from Penn State, I think.
Yeah,
Ohio State. And Iowa didn't win it either. But Iowa fans were just as upset as Rutgers fans about Corsack.
We were like, that guy could not have done anything. I mean, every time we were getting a little momentum going, he would pin us deep. Like, I thought I remembered Kinnick applauding him at one point, like, holy cow. I mean, hey, man, we appreciate good punting in the Hawkeye state. But yeah, I mean, it's a name that Hawkeye fans and certainly the Eyes on Big podcast have known for a long time. That the dude's a magician. The punting in the Big Ten in general this year is it's just been incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the fact that they're both Australian, so that brings the dynamic to it too. And but yeah, no, that was I wrote an article on Iowa fans being outraged that Corsac didn't win the Ray Guy.
I remember that.
And then last year, just I mean, he setting multiple NCAA records and still not winning the Ray Guy Punter of the Year. So obviously, Rutgers fans hope he's able to again this year, but are able to be in contention again this year. But Rutgers fans respect Taylor too, and obviously, it's going to be. This is almost like a chess match more than a football.
It is. It really will be. So the first, and again, we've already said it, but if anybody can get a semblance of some consistency on offense, some continuity, you don't have to bust out big runs or big pass plays. Just win that battle, and then when you get down, to that end of getting a field goal is huge. And the thing is, it's like I do think Rutgers has a good offense or has a good defense. I don't know if it's great. I don't know if it's great yet. It's been tough to tell with the competition, and that's where. But it's going against a abysmal Iowa offense. And then on the other side, I mean, Rutgers offense is obviously struggling, and it's just going against a brick wall. So I mean, there's a reason why the over/under is so low. Everybody else sees what we see as well.
Yeah, and I think Iowa was a 6-point favorite. I don't know if it's moved since, but
7.5. I just checked.
Up to 7.5 now. Yeah. So I think it opened at 6 or 6.5.
Yeah, it depends on where you got it. I think the first official ones I saw were right at 7, so it's just moved up a little bit. But that's a big half point.
Yes, for sure. But I think it's appropriate. With the competition, I mean, I hope that Rutgers defense is top half Big Ten. I think they can be. Joe Harizmiak, had Minnesota number 2 last year, so I really like him as a coordinator and think they're, they're deeper. They're the deepest defensive line they've had in some time. And I'm really curious to see how they hold up against Iowa, in the fourth quarter. And I think it's gonna be a great game. And any kind of, I guess, last thoughts or predictions or just any other keys for this game that we should be thinking about?
Not really. I mean, it would be interesting to see Sam Laporta probably is the best offensive weapon for either team. I mean, he was second team All Big Ten last year, Iowa tight end, right? So we've been waiting for him to break out. So we are hoping that there is a little bit more action towards the tight ends, and that's where some offense could be had for Iowa.
You just put nightmares into the heads of all Rutgers fans, thinking of a big tight end just running down the middle of the field. And that's one thing with us, with Johnny Langen and, Victor Konopka. We wish the tight end was used a lot more in the offense as well.
Yeah, I mean, right now, if you combine both of these offenses to make one Big Ten offense, I don't even think I don't even know if it would be the 11th ranked offense in the Big Ten, because that's how bad both passing attacks are struggling right now. Maybe pairing Eric Cruikshank with our tight ends and a couple, maybe that would open up the offense. I don't know. But anyways, long story short, I think we all see. I tried to look at this game and find points. I can't do it. I just can't find it. I'll be honest with you, I haven't made my official prediction yet. I kind of got a process I go through, but it's going to be something like 17-7, somewhere around there, 13-7. I mean, really, if somebody took Iowa, I could understand it. If somebody took Rutgers in the points, I would definitely understand it.
Yeah, I think being a night game, that dynamic, and I think, the crowd is, this is the first big home game that I think, to be honest, Rutgers has a chance. I mean, they have lost 19 straight home games against Big Ten foes. You have to imagine it ends at some point. For me, this has a little bit of, Michigan vibes of 2014 when Rutgers, it was Michigan's worst team in a while under Brady Hoke the year he got fired, but it was a night game. They had just blown the Penn State game a couple weeks before, and they came out and they won that game with special teams. So, I'm hoping that obviously we see a repeat of that, but I think some strange things could certainly happen in this game. Maybe the score ends up being a little different than all of us thought.
That is where it would come from. Oddball stuff, right? Special teams and defensive plays. And I can assure you, I just sometimes I just get busy, and I didn't look at the kickoff time until today. And I just assumed, 2:30 kickoff at the latest, with it being on the East Coast. I was shocked to find out that it's 7:00 local time for you guys. Don't like it. That would not, especially after playing till Sunday in our last game. I really wish this was an earlier game. But you kind of got me a little bit nervous right there, because yes, I could definitely see this being the classic drunk college football game in some capacity.
Yeah, I don't know which TV executive thought, these are two primetime offenses to get on, get on FS1. But here
there's only 2 Big Ten games at noon, and only 2 Big Ten games at 3:30. So I don't know why they did it to this game, especially with it being an East Coast team. It's crazy.
Jeffrey the Greek, host of the Eyes on Big Ten podcast. Thank you so much. Anything you want to plug before you leave? And thanks again for all your time.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to an ex-Hawkeye, still a Hawkeye, right? We're still a Hawkeyes. He's one of my best friends through college, Henry Polio. He moved back to Jersey, runs Polio Heating, Plumbing and Heating. Let me say that again. Polio, that's 2 L's, Plumbing and Heating. He will shoot you straight. He's a good guy. Don't get him telling stories, because then you'll never get him out of your house. But other than that, I promise you he would do some great work for you.
We'll let him know he gets the free ad this time. And then, if he wants additional advertising, he can let me know.
I will talk to him about that.
Jeffrey the Greek, thanks so much, man. It was great talking to you, and best of luck to Iowa this weekend.
All right, back at you, man. Thanks for having me on.